Thank you, Father, for your presence, Lord. Just breathe on us right now. Just encourage hearts, every heart that's here. Come, Holy Spirit. Just receive it. The Lord's settled. He's here. His presence is strong. I just hear him. He's pleased. This is a big deal. This is a huge deal in our church. New beginning. New beginning. Been there, done that, but this is a new beginning. So whatever it's been, let God do a new thing. New wineskin, new wine. It's a new beginning. Come, Lord. Come, Lord.
Felt like I saw the Lord as we were singing, like when it talks about him walking among the candlesticks. I felt like the Lord was walking among all of you. And as he was walking among you, you had candles in your hand, and he was lighting the candles with a fresh fire from him. And so he wants you to receive that tonight.
Good. It's the book of Revelation, chapter 1. He walks among the candlestick, which the candlestick represents his people, his church. And I think of Christmas Eve when we stand here and hold up those candles. You know, God's brightening the candles. Mm-hmm. Good. Good. Why don't you have a seat, everybody but the group leaders. Group leaders stay standing. Now, if your group is not represented by a group leader, somebody vote on somebody at the table to stand up and stand in. So, Moraba. Who's the normal leader? You're the leader. You're the leader. Oh, you're standing in for you. Okay. But if group leader, you're here. Anybody not have a group leader here? Jay's standing in for you. You got a wimpy group leader, dude. You got one that's strong, one that's kind of weak, but by the way, this is Lou yesterday. I wish Janet was here. But this is Lou. Yesterday, he celebrated his 64th wedding anniversary with his bride. So, you demand. You got three boys and a daughter? 4 boys and a daughter. 4 boys and a daughter, and what a joy. You give her our love. Yes. You tell her that big hugs, and that we celebrate that she gets a crown in heaven. 64 years with you, buddy. Now, come on. Crown in heaven. Go ahead, honey. You wanted to say, we want to talk to you just for a second, you group leaders.
Well, we just want to personally thank each one of you. We just, from the bottom of our hearts, as a team, just what you carry and what you do before the Lord, Kathy and your group, Carrie, Mindy, your faithfulness, Tammy, Simon, your commitment to God, and Will, Melody, just Joanne. And Joanne, your faithfulness, your blessing and your compassion, Deborah, your strength you bring, Eric.
And Christy.
Yes, and Christy, here. Where is she?
She's probably working.
Yes, working. But just your love and just a warrior that you bring to your group. We just thank you for that. Ken and Vicki, just longevity and veterans.
We started 14 years of series on Exodus, and that's when they first came to the church 14 years ago. And they only came to get out of the get in the air conditioning because Charlie had gone through, and so they felt guilty because they ate all our food and sat in the AC for a week. And they said, "Can we give you some money?" And one of the pastors said, "No, but you can come to church on Sunday." And they're like, "Oh, I'd rather give money," but okay. And so we just started the series on Exodus, and I went and trapped them and said, next week we're going to talk about Moses killing somebody. And they're like, wow, maybe we better come back and hear about that.
I know the rest of the story.
And they haven't left since, so they've been 14 years stuck. Keep going.
Genesis, Edwin, thank you for your youthful heart and spirit and just your growing and hunger for God. Jessica, thank you for what a sweet spirit you are, how faithful you are at serving and loving these young girls. And Cindy, thank you. You've just grown so much in the Lord. He's just multiplied himself in you, and more is coming. And I'm sorry,
Sean.
Richie, and
Richie,
Jamie. Thank you so much. You guys, you just rock in the Vineyard. So we're just blessed at what you do and your faithfulness and growing. And we got Mary Ann and Scott.
Where are you? Back here in
And
the back.
thank you
Okay.
guys. You're just great leaders.
Stepping up.
Yep.
Stepping up.
Yep.
Chris, Pam.
Chris, you are a veteran. And we thank the Lord for you because you have so much. Like I said, the Lord said you're a deep well, and he's going to pull out more and more this year. So we're excited about that.
Pam at the beach.
Pam, thank you. Just bless her with more, Lord. Just give her more fun at the beach.
Yeah.
And Angie and
Well, there's Sean.
okay,
here.
Sean. Thank
buddy.
you that you love and serve and give of your heart
your
to
men
other
here.
people with your men, and that you're ugly. And I mean that in the kindest way. That's our heart. That's what we
If
want.
you know us, that's a compliment.
That's we love that. We thank you that you're able to do that with your men. And bless Sue. Thank you so much. She has just been a cheerleader on the team. She's a cheerleader of other women. She's faithful in our hospital team. And thank you so much for the groups that you have not only led, but multiplied. So we're just blessed for that. Yeah. Maralba, we thank you, Maralba, because you have just been a faithful warrior of Jesus Christ.
Fuerte
yes,
Cristo.
on fire for Jesus. You don't back down. You don't slow down. Your passion for Jesus is contagious. And so I pray that that'll just be more contagious this year for many more people drawn into his kingdom. And also for Angie and Adam. Angie and Adam. Wow. We thank you for so many areas that you serve and give, and so much faithfulness. People get lives changed in your group. And we thank you that you give yourself in such a strong way. You pour yourself out into other people's lives. And we thank you for that. It means the world. And did we
missed Jason.
Jason.
Wow. Save the best for last.
Save the best for
Jason
last.
Jason and Carrie.
I'll let
He's in charge of all of you guys, so
That's
give him
right.
a hand.
Give Jason
Great
a hand.
job.
None of this will happen without Jason and Carrie.
So again, thank you, group. Give them all a hand again. Let's give her all of them a hand. Thank you. You can have a seat. You know, it's our groups are the glue that holds our church together. And I know it's Jesus and it's his grace. Someone has said, it was actually John Wimber, the founder of the Vineyard, people come to church for a lot of different reasons. They stay for one, relationships. It's very rare that someone stays in a church. And I know we have that some where people come in stealth. They don't connect with anybody. They move out and go back, you know. But it's really unhealthy. And you know, a friend of mine, it's a larger church than we do, but not that much larger. But a guy came up to him on Sunday and said, Pastor, do you know everybody's name in here? And he goes, well, nah, you know. And he said, let me ask you this way. Do you know when somebody is not here, and they have multiple services like we do, do you know when somebody's not here? And he's like, yeah, but dude, that's a sea of people. There's no way I can keep up with everybody. There's no way I can know everybody. I can't know it. But he did say to the guy, I do know when you're not here. And so I thought that was a great comeback, because he probably wasn't healthy enough to think, why would he know I'm not here? Is it a relief when I'm not here? So anyway, you know, a church will stay only so big if we're limited around the one little circle that one or two pastors can keep. But in the Vineyard, we have so many expressions of care. And so we're so grateful for those of you that open your home, steward groups. It's a challenge, and sheep are challenging. In this series, we're going to talk through, and this coming series is going to be on Psalm 23. All the DVDs will be on Psalm 23. My admonition to you, if I could write a doctor's prescription, and I'm going to hand it to you, it would be to do two things in this series. Now, we're going to have a booklet. Will we have them by, we'll have them by Sunday? We'll have booklets for the groups that will have a journal entry in it. But let me just encourage you. It's been a while since we put the pedal down on having a journal. But I want to put the pedal down on you getting a journal. Now, I have a dear friend in the kingdom, and he's a pastor, and he journals on his computer. You know, and he sends us sometimes, and I know it's practical, but let me just help you. That's boring, and I'm just old school. Get a journal. Get a book. Now, you can go to CVS and get a little spiral notebook for a couple bucks. Same, doesn't matter. Or you can go to Barnes & Noble and spend a bunch of money like I do, and I get, because it's life for me. I go back, Kim was reading me out of her journal just today of something we experienced years ago that we had forgotten, and I even tell the story of what we experienced, but I forgot so many details to that. It was just an impacting story in our lives, and she read it to me, and it was reliving it all over again. It's not a diary, it's a journal. You record the things that God speaks to you. You take the scriptures and you let God speak to you out of the scriptures. And what we're going to recommend is, with your journal, to take Psalm 23 and read it minimum. I would recommend, I don't like to ask things that I don't think people stay. At least you could always do more, but that you will read every day through this series, Psalm 23, every day. You can read it in the morning. I'd read it. Before you know it, you'll have it memorized. But it's not it's to read it, to marinate in it, meditate, get it in you. Psalm 23 is one of the richest portions of Scripture in the whole Bible. And so we're going to deal with what it means to follow Jesus as our shepherd in this series. And I want to recommend, you could start it tonight, before you go to bed. Read Psalm. It'll probably take you less than 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes if you read slowly. I often will pray through it a line at a time. And I just take that line like we do the Father's Prayer, Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven. I start with, the Lord is my shepherd. And I just talk to him. And I talk about him being my shepherd. And I pray through it. And I pray for him as he shepherds others that I care about and love. And I celebrate that I shall not want. I won't be in a place of want because he meets my needs. And pray through the psalm. And I think there's a sense from the Lord. And I don't say this to scare anybody. But there's a sense from the Lord prophetically that he gave us this series, because there's going to be some really serious valleys in the next few months that people among us are going to walk through. And it's not just that Psalm 23 is for grief and memorials. It's for life. He anoints my head with oil. He fills my cup. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. It's not depressing, but there is a grace to comforting us that I think will come out in this psalm, that we're going to need it. I don't say that to put heavy on anybody. And life gets hard, and it gets hard quickly. And so I journal, please. If you don't know how, start. It'll be with your journals that we pass out, and you make it your tool, your book, that God can talk to you and you can write it down. I want to just kind of bounce a few thoughts off of you as we set up for this series tonight. In the Gospel of John chapter 10, Jesus takes an opportunity to talk about himself as a shepherd. And I love this because this kind of sets the backdrop for Psalm 23. And John chapter 10, verse 1. I tell you the truth, the man who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in some other way, he's a thief and a robber. But the man, he's talking about how the enemy, Satan, will try to come in to God's sheep by not the right way. Verse 2. The man who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The watchman opens the gate for him. The sheep listen to his voice. Say that with me. The sheep listen to his voice. One of the primary characteristics in this series, we're going to learn what does it mean to truly relate to Jesus as shepherd, and what does it mean to be a sheep. And one of the primary characteristics is that a sheep recognizes, discerns, and knows the voice of the shepherd. We're going to talk about that in a minute. My sheep listen to my voice. I call my sheep by name and lead them out. That's why when I teach in journal, when we teach in journaling, we teach you to use your first name. For me, Jamie. Now, I write prayers. I write things I'm worried about. I write dreams. I write words that God gives me. But when I'm writing something that I'm meditating on the scriptures, I start with my first name, Jamie. You know why I do that? It's because the Lord is what? Jamie's. Put your name in there. Because God speaks to his children. The shepherd speaks to his sheep personally, intimately. He knows you. If you're Charles, but you like to go by Chuck, or if you're Bobby, but Bob is more endearing, he will call you the name that you intimately connect with him about. And I start with the first Jamie, and then I start writing what I feel the Lord's trying to say to me out of whatever verse that I'm meditating in. He says, I call my sheep by name. It says in verse 4, when he has brought out all of his own, he goes ahead of them, and his sheep follow him. Why? Because they know his voice. Because the sheep learn that every time they hear his voice, something good's going to happen. Every time. Or something important is going to be warned. There's protection. There's provision. There's when he calls and there's a new green pasture. Oh, they start licking their lips. Sheep, as you'll learn through the series, it's the most, it came to me, the Lord, I felt like this from the Lord. I don't know the whole history in the animal kingdom of sheep, but I know this, that they were created by God to need a shepherd. They're not independent creatures. Goats are independent. Goats can find food on their own. They'll eat about anything. Sheep are too stupid. There can be water nearby, but they can't smell it and find it. They need someone to lead them beside still waters. That sheep are dependent creatures that are helpless. Have you ever heard of a sheep going rabid and mauling somebody? No, almost every dog can go rabid. You may say, my dog can't, but dogs can snap and go. You never hear of a sheep going rabid. Pack of wild sheep devour young child. You're not going to hear that. Sheep are defenseless. They don't fight well. They're not real bright. They may be cuddly, but they're not bright. And that's a little humbling because we're sheep. But sheep learn that to survive, they've got to know their master, their shepherd's voice. And if you don't learn to discern the voice of the shepherd, you're going to wander in paths that are not green pastures. They're not still waters. They're not paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And when you're walking through that valley of the shadow of death, you will fear evil. Because you haven't learned how to discern and sense and receive the voice of the shepherd. Now remember, hearing it isn't just it's not some audible, God doesn't talk to me, and rarely does he talk to me on an audible voice. These are impressions. These are senses. These are knowings that he gives us. Sometimes I hear the voice of God in my wife. Now, she's not always the voice of God, but sometimes in the middle of her sharing something, the Lord will be like, I'll hear his voice from her voice. And I'll be like, pay attention to what she's saying. It's kind of like being a pastor. The old adage I used to always teach people, and I probably should remind people, I'll know I'm your pastor the day that I tell you no and you listen to me. I told a young guy one time, I said, buddy, don't ever call me pastor again. You don't listen to anything I say. You never do anything I tell you. Don't call me pastor. Don't call Jesus shepherd if he can't tell you no and you'll listen. Don't call him your shepherd if you're not listening to him. And listening isn't some like just a hobby. It's survival. It's life. It's if I don't hear him, I won't know the right way to go. If I don't sense his presence, if I don't know which path to take, he leads me in paths of righteousness, I'll choose the wrong path. And so, listen, in this series, I hope that you'll develop your hearing ear that pays attention. And it's not this literal ear, it's the ears of your heart. That you'll pay attention to the Father's voice through the shepherd, Jesus. He speaks like a shepherd. And what I was going to say about sheep, I got off, but it hit me that God made sheep so he could teach us what shepherds are all about. I believe that. I've never thought that before. That he didn't just happen to say, oh, who am I going to pick that has an occupation that's kind of like what I'm like? No, he picked a shepherd because he created sheep. They're going to need a person like a shepherd to care for, protect, defend, guide, provide, be their shepherd. What's Jesus like? He said, I'll show you. Study a shepherd. And that's what a good shepherd. Because he goes on and he calls himself, if you can read on later in this chapter, he talks about being the good shepherd that lays his life down for his sheep. And then he talks and he warns, he said, I'm not like the hireling. Let me just read those verses to you. I just feel led. I wasn't going to, but verse 5. He says, in verse 4, he says, he goes ahead of his sheep and they follow him because they know his voice, but they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they'll run away because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Now look at verse 9. I'm the gate. Whoever enters to me will be saved. So that's important to know the shepherd. He said he will come in and go out and find pasture. That's because he leads us to green pastures. Verse 10, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. So in other words, sheep have an enemy, a predator, the wolf, the thief, that we have the same, and just he's using as an analogy, we have a real enemy. Come on, I'm not telling you anything. You try to walk with Jesus more than a day, we have a real enemy. And he wants to steal, kill, and destroy. That's his nature. That's what he loves to do. But what Jesus loves to do is he comes that we might have life and have it abundantly. I love that. And that ties into Psalm 23, my cup overflows. He doesn't want to he's not just going to fill your cup. Fill my cup, Lord. I lift it up, Lord. He wants to overflow. Why? So then you bless other people. He said, now look at verse 11. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd who owns the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep, runs away. Then the wolf attacks, the flock scattered. The man runs away because he's a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. Jesus is not a hired hand. He's the shepherd. And he says, if you want my sheep, you got to go through me. Isn't that good to know? Isn't that good to know that his rod and his staff, they comfort me? That means he's swinging them at the enemy. He's a warrior shepherd. I love about the fact that we have a team in this church that are not hirelings. I'm just grateful. One of the things we've tried to exemplify over the years, my wife and I, there's been plenty of times I've wanted to run. Plenty of times I've wanted to quit. Plenty of times I wanted to give up. Next year we'll celebrate our 40th year doing this. And there's a wolf. There's a pack of wolves that surround us. They surround our family. There's wolves that nip at your heels. There's wolves that want to get into the church. There's people that want to cause strife and division, rebellion, discontent. And trust me, over the years, the average pastor gets run off by less than 3 couples. 3 couples drives the average pastors. The average pastor stays less than 2 years in a church. Less than 2 years. Because it's hard. It's hard, and it always looks better somewhere else. Because I go through all my stories in about 6 weeks, and you've heard all my stories. Every now and then I get a new one. But I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for my wife. She has stood in the battle as a shepherd and fought for this church, fought for your souls, many ways where you'll never see it. Fought with me to not quit and not give up. And there's not enough money that anybody could pay pastors to do what they do. It just isn't. If it's about money, you're not going to last long. It just isn't. It's too hard. It has to be we care about the sheep. And because we care about the sheep, we raise up people that help us care for the sheep. And that's what I I can't say it again as Kim said it, how grateful we are for you small group leaders that open up your lives, open up your home, do the hard work, do the hard battles, but keep remembering that you have a shepherd who never runs. His name's Jesus. He'll never be intimidated. He'll never give up, and he'll never let the wolf have you. He says, you want that sheep? You got to come through me. Just like if someone came in your home. You want my children? You're going to come through me. And if you break into my home, my wife will say, if you want my husband, you got to come through me. No, I'm just kidding. Honey, there's someone out there. You better go check. I did that to her one time, a long time ago. And she gets up before she realizes what she's doing, and she's going out to check. I was like, oh, no, I just kidding. But if you mess with her, man, she's going to be all over you. I'm not going to say whether she has a gun or not. So, but listen, guys, let's have fun this series. Discussion, remember, we're not trying to be Bible scholars. We're not trying to impress one another that we know more about the Bible than other people. We want to share honestly from our hearts of how this relates in my life. How does this help me? How have I struggled here? What does this do in my life? How can I be a better person from what I'm learning? Our DVDs are weak. You're not gonna get wowed by any of them. But if you open up your hearts in your group and just share honestly. And again, no, we don't need any Bible. I release you from being a Bible expert. I release you from feeling like you got to show you know a lot about the Bible. I want you to show that you know the shepherd. And if you know the shepherd, you learn to care for his sheep. You learn to help them find green pastures, not just brag about how you know where the green pastures are. I want you to help people along the way. Let them open up. Let them share. Let's be sheep together and grow together as we follow our shepherd. So on this adventure, I want you to just take some time, and in a moment, I'm going to take some time in your groups. I just want you to talk about in what ways in your life. Now, they may already have this question, and you'll be warmed up for it. I don't know. I didn't talk to Jason. But just one simple question. In what ways in your life are you like a sheep? You. Not, well, you know, we all. No, you. Me. The Lord is my shepherd. That makes me his sheep. And if you're a sheep, what's your sheepness like? What's your sheepness? What is it? How are you like a sheep? How have you been like a sheep? How do you exemplify characteristics, good and bad? Don't just talk about all your good qualities. Talk about your bad qualities, your weaknesses. That's what we call about. That's why Kim complimented Sean. By saying someone's ugly, that just means I hope every group's ugly. That means we don't just get in there and talk about, oh, everything's nice. Oh, praise the Lord. It's all good. Jesus my shepherd. I have no wants. It's all good. There's people we ought to pray for in other countries, but I don't really have any needs in my life. And no, come on. Get in touch with your sheepness, because you're sheepy. You're a sheepy person. And sheepy, I could use another word. I've stepped in it. I've smelled it. I'll tell you one last story and I'll be done. We're in Scotland, and we take a shortcut through this pasture because we're trying to see these, what were they? Deer. They were Scottish deer, and we came over a fence. We walked through the pasture, and it's just really, and there's all these sheep, and she gets a little nervous, like, are they going to attack us? Like, honey, they're just sheep. And so we go see the deer, and we snap some pictures, and then there's this quaint little town, and we go into this high-end art store. I mean, this thing has got high-end art. I mean, just beautiful little quaint shop. And it's got a crickety wooden floor. Everything there is old. So we're just walking around this little store. We're the only people in there. And I get to the back, and my wife looked at me, she goes, did you do something? I said, I didn't do anything. You did something. I know you did too. It's fault, honey. That's bad. Oh, my God. That's terrible. It fills up the whole room. I said, I didn't do anything. And then we look down, and there's this trail all the way in. We had been walking in sheep poop both of us. It was as much on her shoes. And she's like, honey, we need to clean it up. I said, no, we don't. We need to get out of here right now. Thank you. Love the art. See ya. We're the stinky Americans. Anyway, enough said. Okay, so you're going to take, we'll take about, 10, 12 minutes. Just have some dialogue, maybe 15. We're not going to go long. We'll be done before 8. And so take some time. Then after we get done sharing, let's find out if there's some prayer needs in your group. Jason, you got any other instructions? The questions are on the screen. If you run out of things, what is it like to be a sheep? He thinks you need to talk more. I think you're going to just get to the one question. Don't be in a hurry. Talk about what it means to be a sheep. All right, so get ready, get set, sheep on.